بسم الله. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. As we continue in the explanation of this great treatise entitled Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra by the great Imam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi al-Numayri, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. With the time now 7:17 p.m. the evening of Thursday, in accordance with the Gregorian calendar, but in accordance with the Hijri calendar, is technically Laylatul Jumu'ah, the Eid Friday evening, was now the 6th, I hope, of Jum'ad al-Thani, of the month of Jum'ad al-Thaniya, or Jum'ad al-Ukhra, or Jum'ad al-Thaniya, the year 1444 after the migration of our Prophet ﷺ, and I forgot to mention the Gregorian calendar. It is Thursday, December the 29th, 2022. As we continue in the book, Ya Ma'ashar al-Ikhwa, as we continue the explanation of the great Imam Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, who was Sahibu Abi Hanifa, and the one who had catered and serviced his madhab. As Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, rahimahullah, do you see his statement in regards to the Aqidah? You'll find these statements of these great ulama of the past are all mutaqarib. They are all close. Rather, you'll find they're in agreement in regards to what is considered the foundation of our religion. And you'll find that the matter of creed is the matter that has unified the Muslims and is a deciding factor of who's upon falsehood to who's upon truth. And anybody that opposes those affairs that are unified, then we know that that person has deviated from the correct path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obliged for us to cling to with our molar teeth. Based upon what the great Imam, like we mentioned last class, we said it was Abu al-Qasim al-Ladhaka'i, rahimahullah. Al-Ladhaka'i, he's the one that conveyed the statement in his tremendous book. Rather, he was conveyed upon Abi Hamid al-Isfarayini, as we mentioned last class, in his book titled Usul al-Sunnah, the foundations of the Sunnah. That Abu Hamid al-Isfarayini had a book also entitled Usul al-Sunnah. You'll find that the great Imam al-Ladhaka'i, rahimahullah, mentioned the statement of Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani. Like we said, Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani was the companion of Abu Hanifa, and he catered and serviced the madhab of Abu Hanifa. We finalized the explanation of that statement that he mentioned concerning Allah being above and the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the characteristics of our Lord. That statement we mentioned last class, من غير تفسير ولا وصف ولا تشبيه. We mentioned last class, this was the statement of Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani. He said that all of the scholars of fiqh, meaning the proper scholars who have correct belief, who their belief is sound and in agreement with what the Messenger of Allah was upon, alayhi salatu wasalam, and his companions, that all of them from the Mashriq to the Maghrib, we mentioned, from the east to the west, are upon Iman in the Quran, meaning the Quran being the final revelation to all humanity, and it being sound and correct and cannot be changed. And the authentic narrations of our Prophet ﷺ, in which the trustworthy ones conveyed upon him ﷺ, concerning the characteristics of Allah, Ar-Rabb, Azza wa Jal, min ghayri tafsir, wala wasf, wala tashbih, without any explanation, meaning the explanation of the Jahmiyyah, meaning negating those characteristics, nor any false descriptions, nor any likening with the creation. So that's what we mentioned last class in brief. I'll read the end of the statement so we can continue. It says, whoever, فَقَدْ خَرَجَ عَمَّا كَانَ عَلَيْهِ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Whoever now tries to explain that, meaning in other than a manner which has been solidified during the time of the Message of Allah, meaning we read the ayat and we narrate it as it came, with knowing the meaning of it, but without what? Explaining how it is. So whoever goes beyond that in regards to Allah, من فسر اليوم شيئا من ذلك فقد خرج عما كان عليه النبي صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. Whoever now tries to explain that in a manner other than what the Messenger of Allah had did it and his companions in these matters, whoever tries to do that today of that, indeed he has exited outside of what the Messenger of Allah was upon, and he has departed from the Jama'ah. He has departed from the understanding of the companions. So that's what we said last class, the meaning of the word al-Jama'ah. For verily they did not describe Allah, meaning they added something or negated those affairs or those attributes that Allah affirmed for himself and what the Messenger of Allah affirmed for Allah. They did not add to it, nor did they subtract. Meaning, of course we know certain characteristics of Allah are negated. What are those characteristics? Those characteristics that do not befit him, such as Allah having a beginning, Allah having children, Allah having children or having a partner in which he needs in order to expose of the affairs of this existence. All of that's negated. Why? Because it does not befit the perfect creator that he has a need for anything. Just the mere fact of having the affair of need is considered a deficiency as it pertains to Rabb subhanahu. Allah negating from himself, for example, forgetfulness, heedlessness, sleep, exhaustion, tired. All those affairs are negated from Allah. For what Allah negated from himself is what we negate for him, because it does not befit him, because Allah, number one, has said it himself, that these affairs are not befitting for him, nor are they connected with his ability subhanahu. So you'll find that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu affirmed for Allah what he affirmed for himself, and of course what was revealed to him, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu also Allah negated for himself those affairs that also do not befit him. And likewise the Messenger of Allah did the same, and the companions, raising Allah above affairs that do not befit him, such as what we just mentioned of those characteristics of deficiency, as we said. Fine, so let's continue, let's finish. وَلَكِنْ أَفْتَوْا بِمَا فِي الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ ثُمَّ سَكَتُوا فَمَنْ قَالَ بِقَوْلِ جَهْمٍ فَقَدْ فَارَقَ الْجَمَاعَةِ. He says, however, they gave those religious rulings in accordance to what was in the book of Allah and in the Sunnah, the message of Allah, then they remained quiet. Meaning they didn't go beyond except what Allah and the Messenger ﷺ had legislated. They stopped there. Whoever says other than the statement of Jahm, for indeed they have abandoned the companions, meaning the understanding of Islam in accordance to how they understood it in regard to these what? These sacred affairs. The sacred affairs are what, everyone? What we describe Allah with is the most sacred of all matters. What Allah is described with of a characteristic, those matters are very sacred. For verily, whoever now is going beyond what they did, they have abandoned their methodology in regards to these matters. فَإِنَّهُ قَدْ وَصَفَهُ بِصِفَةِ لَا شَيْءٍ. For verily, indeed, they have described Allah with a characteristic of non-existence. This is what we mentioned last class. So let's keep going, flip the page. So we explained that last class. So let's continue. محمد بن حسن أخذ عن أبي حنيفة ومالك وطبقتهما من العلماء وقد حكى على هذا الإجماع وأخبر أن الجهمية تصفه بالأمور السلبية غالبا أو دائما، وقوله من غير تفسير أراد به تفسير الجهمية المعطلة الذين ابتدعوا تفسير الصفات. الذين ابتدعوا تفسير الصفات بخلاف ما كان عليه الصحابة والتابعون من الإثبات. So Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, rahimahullah, let's look to what Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah said. Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah goes on to say, Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani had taken knowledge from who? Abu Hanifa. Rather, like we said, he was from the great scholars who catered to the madhab, as we know. And he taken knowledge from who? And he taken knowledge from Malik, the great Imam. And who was in their tabaqah, who's in their level, meaning the mu'asirun of that time, those great ulama who lived during that time, that same time period, meaning in their time frame, and they were also aqran. They were considered from contemporaries of one another. They were contemporaries, meaning they were around each other, they had taken knowledge from one another, and each of amongst those individuals was well known and acquainted with one another, as far as their knowledge, their status, and who they were. So that's when you see the word tabaqa. Tabaqa means like a layer. A layer. They even use that in the Arabic language linguistically. Like a layer of cake, they say tabaqa. Because it has tabaqa fawqa tabaqa ukhra, one layer upon another layer. So the word tabaqa, we know, are from the sciences of our religion that's become abandoned and lost. There's something in hadith that was known that one needs to also be familiar with. I think that knowledge has become almost lost. The knowledge, what they call tabaqat. Tabaqat is to know who's the scholars that lived in the time of one another, so they can know who's who in regards to the levels of knowledge they possess, and to let you know their virtue. Because those who lived in a closer time period during the time of the Message of Allah and the companions was considered who? More virtuous. The closest of those who lived to the time of Asr Nubuwah, during the time of prophethood, were considered more virtuous. And to know those scholars who lived in those time frames is of the utmost importance. So everyone can know who's who's on their respectable level. And similar to that is these days. Similar to that also. These days it's very important to know who is what, contemporaries of one another, who's well familiar with one another, well acquainted with one another. During their time, they took knowledge at the same time frame. All these matters are becoming lost to the point where people who are considered well esteemed and well acquainted and known during their times, people don't know, so they disrespect them. Oh, who are you? So these affairs, like you said, are very important and they become lost. They become what? Da'i'. They become lost in these days. And you'll find from those who have a great book in Tabaqat is Imam Muslim, Sahih, Sahib al-Sahih, Abu al-Hussein, Muslim al-Hajjaj al-Qushayri al-Naysaburi, rahimahullah, Sahib al-Sahih, Imam Muslim, has a book called Tabaqat. It's 2 volumes, two big thick volumes. It's called Tabaqat, Ma'rifat al-Tabaqat, the known of the level of the scholars who lived during a certain time frames and time periods, who's considered from those knowledge who this guy had taken their knowledge from. For example, Imam Ahmad was known that he had taken knowledge from who? Imam al-Shafi'i. Who's an Imam al-Shafi'i Shaykh? An Imam Malik. How do you know that? Based upon the tabaqat. You know who's who. Who came before, who came later, who was the Shaykh of this particular scholar. All those matters are very important. So tabaqat, who also has a good book in tabaqat, is the Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah. And it's very summarized. This is not too much in detail. The Imam Muslim, his book in Tabaqa is in detail. There's a lot of details in this. It's a little extensive. In contrast to the Imam al-Dhahabi, his is more summarized. The great Imam al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, who's also from the Talamid of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah. That knowledge has become lost during these days. A lot of people have not familiarized themselves with the affairs of what they consider tabaqat, of the scholars, to know who's who's considered from the people who lived closer during the time of the Message of Allah, who lived and taken knowledge from the Sahaba. For example, Abu Hanifa. It was narrated that Abu Hanifa had taken knowledge from some of the Sahaba, that he actually met them. So that means he lived very close to the time of what? The Sahaba, to let you know who he was. And to let you know his virtue. Not only did he take and meet some of the Sahaba, but he also met some of the tabi'een. So that means he let you know that what? He lived at a time frame that was very virtuous in regards to knowledge, in regards to practice of the religion and its implementation, and the uprightness of the people during that time, especially in the affairs of belief. That the people are firm upon what was correct, and that the people of the truth were what? At war with those who tried to now extinguish the light of Allah by those affairs that were contradictive and opposing what Allah revealed. How the people were firm and stood what? Very firm and steadfast in the face of what would take that light. So that time was very virtuous, and that's the reason why the affairs of al-tabaqat are very important. Like we said, to the point that it's become lost, وَلَا حَلْوَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. But hopefully from those who are youth that will come and be able to revive this type of knowledge. If it's not us or me or anyone else, from those students who have time, then maybe Allah will allow some of our youth that will come later in order to establish or revitalize or re-establish this particular knowledge. طيب, so let's keep going. So Muhammad bin Hassan أخذ عن أبي حنيفة ومالك وطبقتهما من العلماء وقد حكى على هذا الإجماع. So this is what Shaykh al-Islam goes on to say. Indeed, he has conveyed this consensus. What's the consensus he's speaking about? We'll talk about it in a minute. محمد الحسن الشيباني وأخبر أن الجهمية تصفه بالأمور السلبية. He says, indeed, he is informed that the Jahmiyyah, they describe Allah with negated affairs. I'll talk about this in a minute, don't worry. In most cases, or all the time. So no, go explain, don't worry. وَقَوْلُهُ مِنْ غَيْرِ تَفْسِيرٍ. So Shaykh al-Islam is explaining Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani's statements. He's giving his explanation, explaining it for you, what Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani said, what he intended by those statements. So he goes on to say, وَقَوْلُهُ مِنْ غَيْرِ تَفْسِيرٍ أراد به تفسير الجهمية المعطلة, without any explanation. So Muhammad Hassan al-Shaybani said, without any explanation. What does he mean by that? So Shaykh al-Islam is saying, he intended by that the tafsir of the Jahmiyyah, the negators from the Jahmiyyah, of those who knew the invented, explaining the characteristics of Allah, which is in contrast to what the companions of the Messenger of Allah were upon, and those who followed them with perfection, meaning the tabi'een, from affirming those characteristics. So is it clear, everyone? So Shaykh al-Islam, what is he saying? Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah يبين مكانة Muhammad bin Hassan. Shaykh al-Islam in this statement, so clarify in light of what the great Imam Muhammad Aman Jami, rahimahullah. And that's someone who's also going to enlighten the people. Shaykh Muhammad Aman Jami, rahimahullah, for those who are students of knowledge who know some Arabic, listen to his what? Lectures. His Arabic is easy to understand, it's easy to follow, and for those who are beginners, he makes you feel proud of him not knowing Arabic in his origin, and he learned it until he became very proficient at it. And he's easy to understand in his Arabic. And he makes Aqidah, he makes you love Aqidah based upon how the method that he had utilized in order to teach the students. The method that he utilized allowed one to what? Enjoy Aqidah. Because some people from their shubahat, from their doubtful matters, they say, oh, learning Aqidah is boring. It's boring to learn Aqidah. We don't have time for that. But if it was matters of marriage and divorce, the whole masjid would be packed, right? But the affairs of what's the most vital and most important and what will rectify the marital affairs and rectify our homes domestically are the affairs of Aqidah. That's the fundamentals. That's the foundation. And the reason why we have the majority of the problems we have is because of some type of infringement upon our knowledge of Allah in regards to our one's belief. And if one was very educated and had knowledge of Allah, they would not misappropriate or conduct the affairs domestically within their homes in a manner that's not befitting. But everybody puts their priorities in its improper place. So the masjid is always packed for years. We have marital issues from the time of the 90s up to this very day. If we was to open up affairs pertaining to marriage and divorce, the masjid is packed. The affairs of Aqidah, I don't have time for that. It's boring. طيب. Those matters, brothers and sisters, listen to Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami. He will make you enjoy Aqidah. To the point where even sometimes you'll find that even Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, that was his Shaykh. Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari, to this day, even when he mentions Shaykh Muhammad al-Jami, his eyes tears up. To this day, which is known about Shaykh Abdullah al-Bukhari and his great strong relationship with the great Imam Muhammad al-Jami, rahimahullah. طيب, that great Imam, as he says in his book here, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, he wants to clarify the status of Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani. If you look in the book, he was the person who was close to Abu Hanifa. What was Abu Hanifa's real name, everyone? Al-Nu'man ibn Thabit, as we said, right? أخذ عن الإمام أبي حنيفة حتى صار إماما مثله وأخذ عن الإمام مالك إمام دار الهجرة فأصبح إماما مثلهما ومن طبقتهما من العلماء. So Abu Hanifa, as he had continued to be a companion of Abu Hanifa until he became an imam similar to him. He became a scholar and an imam of the religion similar to him. Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani. وَأَخَذَ عَنِ الْإِمَامِ Malik. He also had taken knowledge from Imam Malik. Imam Malik was the Imam of Dar al-Hijrah, of Al-Madinah. Until he became an Imam similar to him, to both of them. And he became in their tabaqa. In their tabaqa. What do we say tabaqa mean? I'm sorry, what's that? Layer. Linguistically you can say layer, but it doesn't mean layer, but it means like the same time frame. They were to the point they were contemporaries of one another. All of that. وَمِن طَبَقَتِهِمَا مِنَ الْعُلَمَاءِ. Until they became the same, like we said, contemporaries of one another from those scholars. هذا محمد بن حسن وكلهم بحمد الله متفقون في هذا الباب. وإن اختلفوا في المسائل الفرعية ولكنهم متفقون بتوفيق الله جل شأنه في هذا الباب. Muhammad bin Hassan al-Shaybani, all of them, Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, all agree in this affair. The affairs of Aqidah. Even though they might have differed in the branches, the subsidiary matters of fiqh. There might have been some ikhtilaf in those matters. However, they agreed by the tawfiq of Allah, by the success of Allah in this matter, which is the most important of all of them, which is what? The belief, the fundamentals. وقد حكى على هذا الإجماع من أهل المشرق والمغرب. Those who have conveyed this consensus are from the people of the East and the West. وأخبر أن الجهمية تصف. Now this is where I wanted to explain. And he informed that the Jahmiyyah, that they describe Allah with affairs that are negated in most cases, or always. بل دائما غالبا لا. Shaykh Muhammad al-Man followed up by saying always. He said most cases no, rather all the time. He said لا يؤثر ولا ينقل عنهم شيء يثبتون إلا الوجود الذهني لذلك يصفونه سبحانه بالأمور السلبية دائما. He said, you'll find it's never been conveyed upon them affirming Allah, rather they negated everything until the only thing they affirm for Allah is a what? An existence of the mind. Al-wujud al-dhihni. They only affirm for Allah the existence of the mind. Allah only exists within the mind, that's it. And for that reason, you'll find that they describe Allah by negated affairs, always. And we'll talk about that in a minute, inshallah. وقوله من غير تفسير أراد به تفسير الجهمية المعطلة الذي هو التحريف. So what's the tafsir of the Jahmiyyah al-Mu'attila? Meaning, of distortions, الذي يعرف عند المتأخرين, which is known with those who came in the later times. حمل اللفظ على الاحتمال المرجوح لدليل يقترن به. What's the meaning of tafsir? The meaning of tafsir here is tahrif, distortion. That's what Muhammad al-Shaybani is speaking about in regards to the Jahmiyyah, which is to apply a word, to take it out of its context and apply it to a what? A weak meaning. To apply it to a weak meaning due to a so-called evidence that's connected with it. This type of ta'wil or tafsir is condemned. It's impermissible, especially in regards to Allah's names and characteristics. تأويل الجهمية الذين ابتدعوا تفسير الصفات. The ta'wil of the distortions of the Jahmiyyah, of those who newly invented, explaining the characteristics of Allah in contrast to what the companions were upon. They believed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had two hands that befit Him, that Allah has eyes that befit Him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has these characteristics. They didn't go now and try to twist it and saying, no, the meaning of it is this. This is what Allah intended. Those matters, like we said, are negated. So let's keep going, everyone. So Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah goes on to say, وَرَوَى الْبَيْهَقِيُّ وَغَيْرُهُ بِأَسَانِيدَ صَحِيحَةً عن أبي عبيد القاسم ibn Salam, another great scholar that we need to familiarize ourselves with. The great Imam Abu Ubayd al-Qasim ibn Salam قال هذه الأحاديث التي يقول فيها ضحك ربنا من قنوط عباده وقرب غيره وأن جهنم لا تمتلئ حتى يضع ربك فيها قدمه والكرسي موضع القدمين وهذه الأحاديث في الرؤيا هي عندنا حق حملها الثقات بعضهم عن بعض غير أن إذا سئلنا عن تفسيرها لا نفسرها وما أدركنا أحدا يفسرها. As you'll find Al-Imam al-Bayhaqi and other than him have conveyed with authentic chains upon the great Imam Abu Ubayd al-Qasim ibn Salam, the great Imam, who's Imam that was strong in the Arabic language, who had a lot of what? Had a lot of books and authors. He had a lot of books and treatises that he had wrote. Abu Ubayd Abu al-Qasim ibn Salam, rahimahullah. He also was from those who busied themselves with hadith and adab and manners, and fiqh. He also had taken the duty of qada, of being a judge in an area called Tartus. He was a judge. He has a lot of beneficial books. He was a great Imam, Kitab al-Amwal. His book entitled Al-Amwal, like the riches or wealth, which is a book that is known. The great Imam from the great A'imma declared him to be from the trustworthy narrators. Who are they? Abu Dawud al-Sijistani, Sulaiman ibn Ash'ath al-Sijistani, Abu Dawud, Sahib al-Sunan, who also said he was from the great scholars and the trustworthy ones, is Yahya al-Ma'in. Yahya al-Ma'in. And we know Yahya al-Ma'in gave a tazkiyah, or declared one to be trustworthy. Hold on to that with your molded teeth. Because Yahya al-Ma'in was known to be very stern. Very, very stern. As far as who he declared to be trustworthy or not. The great Imam Yahya al-Ma'in also declared Abu Ubayd Qasim al-Salam to be from those trustworthy great scholars. Also who declared him to be from those great trustworthy scholars, Imam Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. And other than them, from the great ulama of this nation, from these, I wonder whether it gets mixed up the nation and Islam. From this nation, meaning from those great scholars of our religion. وَقَالَ عَنْهُ ibn Rahawayh. Listen to the great Imam who's the teacher of Imam Ahmad. his name was Ishaq bin Rahawayh. What he said about him, who's another great scholar of our religion, Ishaq bin Rahawayh, who's the Shaykh of Imam Ahmad. He said, Abu Ubayd, أوسعنا علما, Allahu Akbar, وأكثرنا أدبا, وأكثرنا جمعا. Listen to what he said about Abu Ubayd Qasim al-Sallam, rahimahullah. He said, Abu Ubayd is the most extensive of us in knowledge. أوسعنا علما وأكثرنا أدبا. He was the most of us as far as in manners. وأكثرنا جمعا. He's also from the most in regards to his what? Gathering of knowledge. He was the most what? Hardworking. وأكثرنا جمعا. إنا نحتاج إلى أبي عبيدة وأبو عبيدة لا يحتاج إلينا. He said, verily we need Abu Ubaidah, Abu Ubaidah doesn't need us. The great Imam. Notice Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah was conveying his statements. Brothers and sisters, this is one of the reasons why I chose this book, so you can familiarize who these great ulama are. Because the great ulama of the past, certain names are mentioned without knowing others. Our ummah is filled with ulama from the past. And we should recognize and be acquainted to who they are. And this is one of the mazaya or the mumayyizat. This is from the great distinguishing qualities of this book. That Shaykh al-Islam conveys a lot of nuqudat. A lot of what? A lot of statements from the ulama of the past in regards to what was their belief. But at the same time, he allows you to benefit of who these scholars were, of people who you're not familiar with. You're not usually hearing their names. He now shows you that these are other scholars who was considered to be revered, respected, and those whose statements was considered and held heavy weight in regards to them. When they said an affair, it was considered what? Heavy. So it wasn't just of what the scholars who we know, we constantly hear their names, of course, and we know that their imamah, them being imams, have been established. Imam Ahmad, Imam Bukhari, the Imam Muslim, we're acclimated, accustomed to hearing those names. What about, like we said, the great Imam of Abu Ubaidah Qasim al-Sallam? You heard what they said about him. This is someone who we also need to what? Familiarize and be what? Be well acquainted to who these type of people or these great scholars, who they are. Fine. So it says, Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim al-Sallam qal. He said, these narrations in which the Messenger of Allah said concerning them, ضحك ربنا, our Lord laughed, or our Lord laughs, from the qunut, that the affairs of when you become hopeless, when you become a state of hopelessness. Meaning the hopelessness of what? The despair of his servants. وَقُرْبِ غَيْرِهِ, and something else of relief is coming. But the point of why he mentioned this, Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim al-Sallam, he mentioned this in order to affirm what, everyone? Allah laughs. That's it. وَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَا تَمْتَلِئُ حَتَّى يَضَعَ رَبُّكَ فِيهَا قَدَمًا. To the end of it. Also, the great Imam Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim al-Sallam, he said that Jahannam will not become filled until Allah the Great, the Almighty, will put His foot on it. وَالْكُرْسِيُّ مَوْضِعُ الْقَدَمَيْنِ, and that the kursi is the place of the 2 feet of Allah, subhanahu jalla sha'nuhu, the 2 feet of Allah, as we know that Ibn Abbas mentioned. وَهَذِهِ الْأَحَدِيثُ فِي الرُّؤْيَا هِيَ عِنْدَنَا حَقٌّ, and also the narrations concerning that Allah will be seen on the day of resurrection and in paradise. These narrations with us are true. The trustworthy ones have conveyed it, some others upon others, or one upon another. Although, if we were to be asked about its tafsir, how to explain it, we do not explain it. Meaning, we do not go beyond what everyone affirming the name, the attribute and the meaning and stopping there. That's what he's speaking about. It's that simple. We hear Allah descends, we affirm it, we believe it, we say Allah ascended above the throne after He created the heavens and the earth, and that was between it within 6 days. Then Allah ascended above the throne. How? Allahu A'lam. We stop, we affirm it, we affirm its meaning, we don't go beyond that. That's it. Narrate it as Allah has said in His book about Himself or concerning Himself. To now come and explain it or say how it is or distort the meaning by saying no, it does not mean ascension, it means domination. Or it means that Allah had taken it back after it became in possession of someone else. That's what you'll find in the Imam al-Dhahabi said. If you say that the word istiwa means istila. Istiwa. Istiwa means ascension. If you say istila means domination. Istila. From the verb istawla, yastawli, istila'an. Istawa, yastawi, istiwa'an. He said, no, it doesn't mean ascension. It means domination. You'll find Imam al-Dhahabi refuted this claim by saying, what does the word domination mean? It means that Allah lost it and He had to get it back. Or He had to be now fighting or competing with someone else in order to get His throne back. Or to fight with them so He can dominate it. All those matters are all what, everyone? Absolute nonsense. Who did Allah have to fight with a throne that He created, and then He lost possession of it to get it back in order for Him to be the dominant one over the throne? Which doesn't absolutely make any sense. This is why you find that Imam al-Dhahabi refuted these notions, saying it does not mean what? Domination. It means Allah ascended above it. Istiwa does not mean istila. Does not mean domination. When He dominated it, or had taken it over, or had to subdue it in order to get it back. So those matters are all what? Negated. So that's what you'll find that the great Imam Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim al-Salam is mentioned in these narrations here. So let's go on, and I'm going to read it and we'll stop. أَنَّا إِذَا سُئِلْنَا عَنْ تَفْسِيرِهَا لَا نُفَسِّرُهَا وَمَا أَدْرَكْنَا أَحَدًا يُفَسِّرُهَا. We're going to mention the meaning of this also. He said, we not reached anyone from the scholars of the past that tried to now explain it. Explain it meaning the tafsir of the Jahmiyyah. Abu Ubaidah, أحد الأئمة الأربعة. Listen to what Shaykh al-Islam says here. Abu Ubaidah al-Qasim ibn Salam is one of the four Imams, right? الذين هم الشافعي وأحمد وإسحاق وأبو عبيد. So this scholar was considered from the four great Imams, Abu Ubaid al-Qasim al-Salam. That's to let you know of a heavyweight he was, rahimahullah. وله من المعرفة بالفقه واللغة والتأويل ما هو أشهر من أن يوصف، وقد كان في الزمان الذي ظهرت فيه الفتن والأهواء، وقد أخبر أنه ما أدرك أحدا من العلماء يفسرها، أي تفسير الجهمية. This great Imam was considered with some of the four great Imams, Abu Ubaid. He said he possessed of knowledge in affairs of jurisprudence, of fiqh and Arabic language, and ta'wil, an explanation of the verses in the Book of Allah. He says it's the most famous of what one can describe concerning him. And during his time, he came at a time where there was a lot of trials and tribulations and people following their desires. I wonder what the ulama would say these days. Especially if they was to see the social media and the YouTube and all the other things, all the atrocities that the people are being tested with. وَقَدْ أَخْبَرَ أَنَّهُ مَا أَدْرَكَ أَحْدًا مِنَ الْعُلَمَاءِ يُفَسِّرُهَا. He says, indeed, he is mentioned or informed that there was no one that reached the true scholars that did this, that gave the explanation of the Jahmiyyah. So, we'll stop here, inshallah. We don't want to continue, but we'll stop. I don't have much pages left. That's it. Any questions about the lesson, anyone? Anything?
So with this, أحد الأربعة الذين هم الشافعي وأحمد بن حنبل وإسحاق وأبو عبيد. This is إسحاق, زين إسحاق بن
راهويه. إسحاق بن راهويه وأحمد وإسحاق وأبو عبيد. That's Ishaq ibn Rahawayh and Hamzah, the great Imam. The Imam Ahmad said about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, they asked Imam Ahmad about him. You know when Imam Ahmad said about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, he said, you are asking me about Ishaq ibn Rahawayh? You should be asking Ishaq ibn Rahawayh about me. Meaning, about who, you're asking me of someone who's greater in status, that I respect. Who's that? Someone who's someone you're asking about, the Imam Ahmad, about someone who came before me, who's greater in knowledge and status, about who he was. Meaning, if you want to know about who he is, the knowledge that he deserves and the respect he deserves, don't forget to pray 2 rakats. 2 rakats. You know how to pray 2 rakats? For greetings in the Masjid. تفضل 1 second.
لا حقك.
الله يبارك فيك. تحية المسجد. لو صليتهما تكلم العربي أنت.
نعم.
قلت يعني هل صليت تحية المسجد؟
لا.
هذا هو. أذكرك بهما. قبل أن تجلس لابد تصلي ركعتين تحية للمسجد. الله يبارك فيك. حياكم الله. طيب. So we were saying لا تنسى يعني مكان الوضوء هناك جنب الحمام هناك. وراء الجدار هذا. المهم, so we were saying, معاشر الإخوة, that the affairs pertaining to Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, the Imam Ahmad was asked, he said, you asking me about Ishaq? He said, I'm the one that should be what? You should be sitting with him and asking about me. Meaning, I'm the one that needs to be known by his statement. His statement is well respected. That's what Ishaq ibn Rahawayh is, alhamdulillah, the great Imam. So these are the type of ulama that we said we need to familiarize, to be what everyone well acquainted with. Because like we said, the names are not mentioned too often. But these scholars, we need to be aware of their status and who they are. Because they're, like we said, their statements carry weight with us. They carry weight, especially concerning the affairs of creed. They are heavy statements, and they are the ones whose books protected. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made theirs scholarly efforts or scholastic efforts, the reasons for why this religion was protected. And that Allah, through their great efforts that they put forth and sacrifices, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by those ulama and by their works and by their efforts, the religion was protected from being corrupted and changed and tainted. No. So, I'm sorry, Mustafa. Anything else? I'm sorry. Anything else? Jayyid. So we'll stop here and we'll continue next week, inshallah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.